Alright, so, part two, I guess. I have a problem with my code. I know I lost the train of thought of what I was saying earlier. Um, Before I try to implement this Paint 5D program and all of the editor stuff, I need to avoid digging myself into a hole any deeper than I may already be. We have a problem with the window. The window seems to sometimes be unresponsive, and it's because I'm doing everything in the same thread. And I think Win32 might expect the window thread to not be doing a lot of work. Um, so with that, I have the option to make my program with a multi-threaded window. The problem with multi-threading, I find, is you have coherency issues where um, you look at a variable from one thread and it'll be one value. Look at a variable from another thread and it'll be a completely different value. And that leads to some really weird behavior in my program. And I would rather just have everything be single threaded so I could avoid that. But I think that Windows isn't going to let that slide. It's basically saying, you know what, you're doing way too much work for this loop. Um, and so it's just like the Windows crashing on me. Unfortunately, I don't have any internet right now, so I have to think about what is a design I could do where I'm not sure, a simple design where it'll mitigate some of the problems of multi-threading, but allow me to do multi-threading in a way where the problems aren't going to be too bad. So I think what I could do is I could have a thing called the mouse box and a thing called the key box. And as I go through my window loop, if the M key was pressed, it leaves an M in the mouse box. And if the mouse moved to a certain XY position, it puts that coordinate in the mouse box. So it puts a key in the key box and a mouse in the mouse box. Then my other thread, my main game thread, will check the mouse box every iteration and be like, hey, is there anything in there? Any input I can use? And it'll take the value out. And then my loop will also, my editors will also, look in the mouse box, see if there is a coordinate update in that box, and it'll take that value out. So it's basically like a remaking the polling events from the Win32 code, but getting it to be on the main thread. So the problem could happen where sometimes there's a lack of coherency between the values in that mouse box. So the controls might do some weird things that might need to be addressed with mutexes or some weird fuckery. But everything else will be prim and proper. That's the I think that's the best solution. Because if we rely on having the window thread call certain update callbacks, you got to remember that those update callbacks are now being called on your window thread. And if these update callbacks are doing a whole bunch of stuff that pertains to your main game logic, now you have a potential synchronization issue, and you potentially have a whole host of memory coherence issues. So I would like to mitigate that problem by bottlenecking the memory coherence issues right at the input phase, where all the weirdness is going to happen at the keyboard inputs and the mouse inputs, and then everything else will be fine. We can't do that with a callback. Also, callbacks make the code harder to follow because it's a function pointer. It could point to anything. If we just in our window loop put in certain values in this key box and certain values in this mouse box, then it's like we have a way to kind of follow the logic, right? Because we can just look at the mouse box, and then we can just look for any code that's referencing the mouse box to see what's actually using that, right? We can look at the key box and see what code is referencing the key box variables, and then we know how it's working, right? And then in our main loop, where different editors are updating, we can have a variable for like editor in control, and the editor in control determines which editor will read the keyboard events. And so we'll have, instead of having like setting different callbacks depending on which editor is in control, like wiring up different editors' listeners to keyboard input, they all listen at the same time in like a big loop. But if they are not the editor in control, they ignore it. Or better yet, we just have a big if else, right? Really ugly if else, but very straightforward. A big if else. If editor 1 is control, editor 1 read inputs from mouse box and key box, right? If editor 2 is in control, well then execute the function editor 2 read inputs from key box and mouse box, right? So a very simple, straightforward loop. So I do want to take a shot at that. I guess what I should do is maybe crop this screen a bit before I do that. So I need, on my little agenda here, I need an editor in control variable somewhere. And I need a mouse box and a key box, and then some type of big update loop. And then I also need to change this to multi-threading. So if I look at my project right now and I like open it up, I'm gonna, I'll do it right here, and then I'll do, oh yeah, that could actually be nice. Okay, so I'm gonna make a new input here really quick. So display capture, we're gonna call it bot Okay, so I'm gonna take, that's actually what I want to take. I want to take this screen. I'm gonna add a filter here in OBS to crop this. Or not, if I don't know what I'm doing here. Does not like my extra monitors here. So let's add a filter. Okay, so now that we can crop this, let's just crop it to that partition of the screen. So I'm just gonna, I know the resolution, what is my resolution here? It's, no, I just wrote it down. 1366. So calc okay, 683. Okay, so let's do a 683. And that is the wrong side. Left, 683, and 0. There we go. Okay, so now we got a little list there. And then on the bottom, we can crop away some of that nonsense. And then also we can... we'll keep that at the top. But I don't even know why that looks like that. And we can also... do we wanna crop this a bit? So okay, so we never get any of the space over to the right here. No matter how far we zoom in, you never get to see any of that. So it's because I can't zoom in on the font on Windows anymore. So on the right, we might as well crop that so that you can see the entire list. So if we do like maybe 200, 200 has some decent padding. How about 250? All right, let's close that. Okay, so now we got a little nice file list here. Do I really need this crap over here? I don't really need it. Alright, so yeah, let's just take that and we will... oh boy. Yeah, let's take this. And... that's not what I want to take. I want to take this. And... oh wait, that's not quite cropped, is it? So let's look at our filters again. So on the left, that needs to be cropped a bit more. Alright, and... close. Okay, so that's a nice little list right here. So now we can kind of like make better use of our space that's kind of like not being used for much. And I wonder if we can take this topic banner. I wonder if we can kind of just rotate it. I just stick it in that empty space so people can kind of see what the subject matter is. Rotate degrees, clockwise 90. Yeah, let's do that. And then let's just shove it. Let's make it big enough so that we can see it. Yeah, let's do that. And then we'll just throw it all the way in the back. All right, and as far as these tabs, I don't really need these tabs. So on the left screen here, let's add a filter, and we'll just do another crop, and we'll crop away the top. And then on the top, just gonna get rid of that taskbar. All right, so I think that's decent. What else? Yeah, let's just go with that. So yeah, I have these different things I need to do, and before I do any of them, I just want to go into my build script, give the project a run, make sure it's actually running, make sure it's actually working and whatnot. And if it runs, then we just want to make absolutely sure it's in a stable state. So right here, ooh boy, that's interesting. Can we just go window? I'm gonna say that it doesn't understand snapping to the window very well. Understands that, but when we full screen that is quite horrible. Okay, well, we'll have to fix that eventually. So let's just look at it like this. Let's hit the one key to see nice stuff. Just a shader. I stole off a shader toy to test my OpenGL setup and see if I had that running correctly. So right now I know that the code will eventually, the program will eventually stall on me, and it does so in a very unpredictable way, where I never know when it's going to do it. So, so we're just gonna wait for it to stall on us, I guess. And then the question is, if I put this into multi-threaded window mode, will some of the problems get fixed? Will it, It's very hard to know, though, because it's just so unpredictable that you can never really know when the problem's fixed or not. So, yeah, I just don't know when it's gonna crash on me. And, I could switch windows, move it around. I thought that, sometimes when I, have other things in focus. Yeah, so when I have other windows in focus, that creates a problem. So the interesting thing is, see how it's not responding right now? If I I'm not going to hit Control-Alt-Delete now that I think about it, because if I hit Control-Alt-Delete, I notice that it destroys OBS. Like, OBS no longer gets the screen if I Control-Alt-Delete. If I Control-Alt-Delete, OBS will tell me that it's still recording the screen, and it'll look like I'm recording the screen, but I'll never be able to get the screen back after I Control-Alt-Delete. So I just have to tell you that once I hit Control-Alt-Delete, this will start responding again. And with no problems. Just, it'll start responding again. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, in my console here, I'm just going to hit Control-C, and that'll exit the program. And then we'll try to see if, maybe putting it in multi-threaded mode will fix some of the problems, and see if we can get it to, see if we can keep it from freezing by just using multi-threaded mode. So we have different configurations here. I'm kind of paranoid, I don't know if multi-threaded will work, because it's been a while since I put it in multi-threaded mode, so let's just give that a run and see if anything crashes. I don't think anything will crash, it's just that if things aren't called in the right order, we might see not what we want. like this. That's not what we want. Okay, so we don't have quite what we want in the multi-threaded mode. So we gotta fix that first before we even do anything else. And we don't have any fatal errors. It's just that we're probably not calling some code when we're in the multi-threaded mode. So if we kind of look around for is multi-threaded, we're probably going to see some really crazy stuff, and we're going to see some ridiculous, horrible spaghetti code. So if multi-threaded, okay, so let's see. Over here we have if multi-threaded, we just wait, and then otherwise we do like all of this stuff. Graphics update tick, game loop, window tick, so a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm gonna guess that in the multi-threaded mode, we mean to probably set up some type of callback that is going to like call the some type of update function. So I actually think, you know what, that this wait shouldn't be there. I think if it's multi-threaded, we still wanna do this, right? Because this is a while. This is an infinite loop. And if it's multi-threaded, yeah, we can just use this wait to keep the window open. But then all of this code isn't going to get executed unless we're calling it with like a callback. So if we look at the multi-threaded flag, do we have anything where we're kind of like setting up a callback? And I don't think we do. So we can kind of look for that and see if we have a callback, and I don't think we do. We can look at this other multi-threaded variable. So I don't know what the hell this is. Like, what is this? Because it's like if and then end if, and this is like, is this not a statement with no effect? Oh, okay. It's a oh, Gaia. It's an initializer, and if we initialize it, we can initialize it multi-threaded or single-threaded. So if we look at the init in our window code, so in our functions, init, and the thing is, as long as we abide by, let's put a breakpoint here, as long as we abide by the idea that we have this chain and we know that this library cannot reference anything up here, then we automatically know that Gina Win init could only be referencing this, and so it can't be referencing all this other stuff. So we've kind of determined already, without even looking at Gina Win init, without even looking at the init code, I'm already pretty damn certain that the init function cannot be setting up any type of callback that's going to be doing all of this different stuff up here, right? So we've, by keeping this very linear structure, we've kind of reduced our search space. So let's just look for an underscore init function and see what we find in here. And function pointers init, so this is going back even, this is Windows setup code. Some of it looks pretty trashed up because it's like old code that I reworked, and so it is kind of a shit show in here. A init pixel format descriptor, a init global state container, and then Gina win init, so single or multi-threaded, and init global container, assert correct size of types, init the function pointers. So if we are multi-threading, it just says that we're multi-threaded. Create thread, and then assert thread created. So it's going to create the thread on a different window. It's going to create the window on a different thread. If we're single-threaded, then it's just doing some of the window, when it's opening the window like right here because it's on a single thread. But yeah, so nothing in here is telling me that this code is gonna like somehow set up a callback or whatever. So I'm fairly certain. And that's why you got to keep this design as simple as possible, because you could easily get lost, especially as this gets bigger and bigger. So we've kind of like isolated this init, and we know that we've looked at it, and we're pretty sure that. So if we let's highlight the multi-threaded tags here. So in this setup right here, right? So this is main. If we look through it and we see this, right? So this is the only thing that window tick. Okay, so there's a window tick with single threaded here. So that's interesting. I wonder if there's like a window tick function that I'm calling somewhere else. So let's look for that. Do we call window tick with like a different flag? And I don't see a different flag. So I'm going to just do Control H and kind of look through this repo for all instances of this window tick function and kind of see window tick private, window tick, so there's only one call site. Oh, you can't see that. There's only one call site of the window tick function. We have window tick private here. And is that in the multi-threaded mode? Mm-hmm. Okay. So in the So what's happening is, I'm sure that public window tick function is probably only meant to be called in a single-threaded mode, right? Because the idea is, if your window is on a different thread, you can just start up an infinite window loop and just go about your business. However, if your window is on the same thread, then instead of calling the window loop, you need to call each tick of the window loop. And that's why we have this window tick private. So this window tick private is designed to be called in the multi-threaded mode, right? Because it says spin lock here, so this goes on forever and forever. So we can't be using this private window loop function. It's private. I know it's private because that is all, the namespacing is lowercase, so lowercase namespacing tells me it's private. So that makes sense why I did it that way, and I almost guarantee that how we have this single-threaded constant right here for the type of threading. I bet if you call window tick without single-threaded, it throws an error, because this public window tick function right here is designed to be called in the same thread as your code. So, okay, so I see all of that, and so I'm fairly certain that we need to kind of like get we need to get this big chunk of code executing no matter if we are single-threaded or multi-threaded. And then we also need to, for this window tick though, if we're in multi-threaded mode, we don't want to call this. We only want to call this part in single-threaded mode. So even with all that, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter though. So if I'm gonna close everything but this, and I'm gonna show you something. So that's good and all. That's a good way to fix what is currently broken. But before we even do that, let's take a step back. You see how I have this chain here? This is my window code. So let's just compile up to step 2 really quick. And if we compile up to step 2, and we're not in multi-threaded mode, so we can turn off multi-threaded. So I'm going to compile up to step 2, and I'm not going to be in multi-threaded mode. So if I run now like that, we're not going to get any shaders or anything because we're just doing those 2 libraries. And there you go. It's just, you know, nothing fancy. It's just a white screen. And that's what I expect. Now, what I've noticed is it'll still become unresponsive in this current setting because in this current setting, right, we are not multi-threaded and we're only compiling up to here. So now we can forget about all this stuff. All these different libraries, we know they're not creating a problem for us if it freezes, and we know the problem is just this or that. Because we're able to do like a binary search with this number, right? We're only compiling up to here. We're only including these sub-libraries. So that's cool because, hey look, it's not responding again. So now I know, without a doubt, that I can forget about all these different libraries. Be like, nope, whatever this weird behavior is that I'm getting, that an assert didn't catch, a unit test didn't catch, right? All this is just, it's weird behavior. Something's going wrong, but I wasn't able to get an error message or anything. None of my preventative measures were able to catch it. But the ability to subdivide this code base quickly and easily means that I know it's either in here or in here. And I know it's probably in here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to just Control C and stop the program. And we're going to put it in multi-threaded mode. Because I have a hunch that, well, I guess we're not really... Well, my assumption was that we were making this thread do too much work, but I don't know. Well, I mean, this is a lot of extra work for the window thread to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it in multi-threaded mode, and we're going to see if it just works, right? We're going to see if, like, by being in multi-threaded mode, it'll just, you know, won't start to freeze on me. And it might. And if it freezes in both modes, then I know that maybe the problem isn't whether or not it's multi-threaded or not that's causing this crash, but it's something else. And if it's something else, then I can decide if I want to nix multi-threaded mode and only go single-threaded, or nix single-threaded mode and only go multi-threaded. Then I can decide on one or the other if this problem isn't because of multi-threading. Now, having that information is just going to help me make a better decision. However, I would really like to have the window on the same thread as everything else, just to keep the code simpler and to avoid weird threading issues like cache coherency. But if that's not possible, if it's not possible to keep it on one thread, then I want to do multi-threading. So we'll give that some time. We'll try to like open up some other windows, close some other windows, and just kind of like um, give it some time, because I noticed that it's a little bit unpredictable and when it becomes unresponsive. So I just want to give it that time. So that I just want to give it some time. Oh, hey, look, I think it's not responding again. Okay, so because I got it to not respond by not really doing anything, I'd say that there's some other fundamental error in probably my window loop. Or somehow, like, I'm not, like, I was thinking maybe I'm not, like, processing all the events of the loop or something like that. So something is more of a problem than, oh, you just can't get the window to work single threaded, right? It's just not a thing you're allowed to do, right? So let's compile back all the way to the start, and just a big sanity check. Okay, so this works how I expect. Pressing numbers, I can get different shaders. They all look pretty much the same because they're just default slots. And well, the problem is something that's happening in my window code. And honestly, I don't know enough about Win32 to know what's going on there. But we could look at our functions, and one thing I was thinking about was like default window proc. Like, did we forget to call it? Because I know okay, nope. So default keep window responsive. So there's a little comment there. You know what I think? I think that I think what's happening is so I actually think that this oh, you know what? So return this result. Okay, so return this result is only ever set by the default window proc, which is only ever set when I am in the default. So otherwise, it never does the return this result. Well, it does. It just always returns 0, and 0 probably indicates that there's not a problem, so that's fine. But I believe that Windows is actually plugged into this default window proc. So if I look at where this is being called, yeah, so long pointer to function window proc, right? And that's part of the window class, and then extra, and then W. So it is basically W is for wide string. So this is the Unicode version of the window class, and it's also the extended version of the window class. Which makes things really fucking confusing sometimes. So you have basically 4 different combinations, right? Because you could have EX or you could not have EX, so that's 1 bit. And then you also have a W for wide string, or you could have an A for ASCII, so that's another bit. So you have 4 different combinations you could have. In binary, right, that's going to be 0 to 3, 0, 1, 2, and 3, which is 4 combinations. So now that we kind of see that, and we know where this is being called from, and we know it's definitely being called from Windows Windows operating system code or some type of proprietary Windows library. So if it's being called by Windows, then we have to abide by some certain rules. And if we break some of the rules, then Windows will pick up that, hey, we're breaking these rules, we haven't reported back correctly, and because we haven't reported back correctly, the system is going to say, oh, you're unresponsive. So to keep the window responsive, what I think actually needs to be done is that we always call the default window proc. So not just in default, but we just always call it. So we could just comment out the default and just do nothing in the default. And then what we should do is we probably should always call it. So we're going to give that a shot. Yes, I think. Okay, so yeah, so I think that we always need to call this. So that is my guess. So because it's a guess, I label it as a guess. Now I guess we could also do this, right? If we want to make things, if we wanted to establish like a convention where we do this a lot, like I know people do this with hacks, where they'll write hack in all capitals and they'll put square brackets around it, just so it's very easy to find that exact string. We will dress that up all nice, take our time with it, because everything else is freaking trash. Because I had a different column limit. I used a 50 column limit when I was programming this originally, and then I switched to using a 64 column limit. The initial intent for a 50 column limit was just, it was, you know, easy to work with. You know, 50 easily goes into 100 units of 100, like base 10, right? Very easy to do math with 100, 200, 300, right? Just easier number to work with than a power of 2. But then I just ended up needing, it wasn't just that I wanted more space, because I'm just trying to be very strict with my column limit and keep everything very condensed and not use very long lines of code. I ran into a problem where sometimes when I was trying to line things up, well, 50 is not an even multiple of tabs, especially when your tabs are like 4 or 8, right? So 64 times 64, no, I mean 8 times 8 is 64, right? And then 4 times 4, 16, 16 times 16, I don't know what 16 times 16 is. But the idea is, right, your tabs, if they are 4 spaces, it goes in evenly. Pretty sure 8 would go in evenly as well. We can just test it out, right? So we can just go over here and go paste, 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 right? So with 64, if you have tabs that are 8 long, it goes in evenly. If your tabs are just 4 characters long, it goes in evenly. And with that, it's just easier to make sure that all your code lines up. Because I like the code to line up. I like the code lines to be small. So I'm going to just take a guess that this is the solution. I don't know if this is proper syntax. I don't know if we can go default and just keep it blank or not, but we're going to find out. And so we're just going to try to like rerun that and hope that that's the solution, because we don't have any we don't have any we don't have any internet right now, so we can't check if we wanted to. So we commented that out, and it's telling us label at end of compound statement. So label at so I'm gonna guess we have to like do something there. So we're gonna just do like if okay, so we're just gonna put a no op right there. And if we look at some of this other code, so that's kind of confusing because I see that this case right here, this case, I totally gutted this case. There's no code there either. These cases have code, but this case that I've gutted has no code. So I don't know, maybe default just always has to have something. But now it does have something, and I think that right in here we had, yeah, so we could try that. And is this the beginning of the case? Oh, switch message, and then case. So this case goes to here, break. This case goes to here and breaks. Oh, so even though it's gutted, I probably had a break, didn't I? Case and break, case and break. This case does not have a break. So that also looks like a problem. Okay, well, let's take it one step at a time. So I think that no op in there should probably fix the compiling error. And then let's probably let's make our loops a little bit more standardized. Okay, so we're back here. We got our shaders up. So now it's just a waiting game. Let's click some other windows and things and see if we can get this to like stall on us. And we'll give it a while. Actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go upstairs, and I'm just gonna see if I'm going to see if, oh, I think it crashed. So let's take a look. So we got not responding. Okay, so that's not the solution. So if we go in here, we're just gonna Control C, exit. So I don't know why that is, but what we can do is we can kind of clean up some of these cases here since we have some weird stuff going on. So what I do with some of these cases is because there's so much going on, so here's my switch, and then there's a case and a break, and then a case and a break, a case and a break, another case and a break. This doesn't have a case, so let's go like this, and then, well, there might be a reason for that. You know what, there's no reason for that, because if we hit this case, I don't think we should also just go down here as well. I don't think we should have that fall through. Especially because this fall through is going to go all the way to the paint message. Yeah, that doesn't seem like a proper way to do things. So, yeah, that can't be right. So, well, I mean, it could be. It could be right. I don't know. Let's not be that close-minded, but let's close that off. Because I don't even see any comments for, like, why this is falling through. Question. So, should WM close fall through to WM destroy? And I don't think it should, but just in case, I added a question. So if I'm looking over this code again in the future, maybe I'll see that question and be like, what is that about, you know? Yeah, and when we do the break doesn't have a semicolon, does it? Yeah, none of these breaks have a semicolon, so I did that improperly. So let's go back here. So... Okay. So I don't think that's going to fix anything, but just wanted to see what would happen. So let's just run that, see if we have any weird syntax errors since we mucked around with that. Looks like we're good there. And like I said, I don't expect this to actually fix anything, but that's probably some necessary cleanup that probably should have been there anyways. So while we're doing that, click some other windows, because I feel like it might be completely random, but I kind of feel that having different windows active is something that kind of like helps this become unresponsive. There we go. So unresponsive. Okay, so not responding. Okay, that's fine. Wait for the program to respond. So I have no clue why that is. So what should we do right now? Because we don't know, we can't look this up right now because the internet is down. So I guess we should probably just keep on, fixing what we can fix. Like getting the multi-threaded version to work. And yeah, let's probably do that. Okay, I'm gonna stop recording, go check the food, and then come back. And then we're going to let me make like a little agenda here. So my agenda, so just making a note here. Okay, so I got a little agenda display. So right now, I have uh, so I need to fix multi-threading mode, and then I'm gonna create we're gonna add the I key. We're gonna add I key box, add I mouse so the mouse box, the key box, remove mouse callback, and then we're going to remove keyboard. So the reason for removing keyboard callback and the mouse callback is because we want to avoid weird problems with memory coherency. And we're going to just do that. We're going to solve the problem by making the code. So if your window is multi-threaded and you have a mouse callback and a keyboard callback on that window thread, and those callbacks execute like a whole bunch of game code, you now have half of your game code running on one thread and half of your game code running on another thread. And now you're asking for trouble. So, but we still need a way to get those inputs into the game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the multi-threaded window or the single-threaded window is going to leave keyboard values in like a PO box called iKeybox and iMoubox. And then my game thread will check for these values and determine what kind of like actions to take. So if anything weird happens because of incoherency in the cache from one thread to another, we'll still have weird stuff, but the weird stuff will only happen at the user input level. It'll be all that weird stuff of that can happen with threading. It'll all be bottlenecked to one point of failure. It'll be failing at the user input rather than possibly in all sorts of different weird places. So we can mitigate where the disaster is going to happen. I don't know if that's... We can mitigate the disaster, right? We can isolate the problem to happening in only one spot. And if it happens in that one spot, it's not too bad anyways. And also having it happen in that one spot will make it a lot easier to track down when weird, unpredictable multi-threading stuff happens. We'll know exactly where that problem is happening because we've added kind of like a bottleneck to where all that goes down. And I really shouldn't say bottleneck because bottleneck implies that like we're waiting on one thread to do something before another thread can do something, and that's kind of a bottleneck. Like a mutex or a semaphore, those are basically bottlenecks. But it doesn't sound as good to say, hey, our code needs more bottlenecks, so you say it needs a mutex or a semaphore. So I think doing it this way will help mitigate some problems and still keep the code kind of simple. I've never done something like this where it's like creating like a little container for these events, but now that we're in C code and we're potentially going to multi-thread, we need some way to do this. Also, this will, if we do this type of model where we just lay these values somewhere for them to be read later by something, then we can remove these callback functions and make the code a little bit more straightforward and easy to follow. Because if we want to know where mouse or keyboard stuff is being used, we can just check for iKeybox and iMouseBox references in the code. with the current setup, well, you're calling a mouse callback and a keyboard callback from the window thread, and just by looking at the window code, you can't tell what execution path it's using from just reading the code, right? Because it could be set up to any callback, and you don't know what callback it is. And I originally did the callback because I knew that the window was going to need to call some code from the future, right? So if I wanted to keep this, like strict ordering here, if I want to keep this strict execution ordering, well, the window is one of these fundamental things that just needs to be created before everything else. Like, it needs to be created before the GL setup specifically. Since it's a fundamental thing that needs to be created so early, it can't directly reference anything up here. So I kind of like did a hack where, well, it has a slot for a callback for mouse and keyboard, and then these different libraries can like wire up mouse and keyboard inputs to the window in that manner. But that still creates some spaghetti code because now we have indirection and we're going backwards, right? So we violated one rule where code back here is now referencing the code up here. So we violated that rule, and then we also added extra indirection by using a hard to follow function pointer. So we added two problems to the code that make it way more convoluted. So it'd be easier if we put a library before here, so between native keyboard and the native window code, before this window code and after the native keyboard code, we're going to put the I key box and the I mouse box. And you might be like, well, why have I key box and I mouse box? Why not just make something more generic like input box, right? Or, input container or input PO box, right? Or something like that. And the reason why I'm not going to be that generic is because I'm trying to be as explicit as possible and not be abstract. I'm trying to avoid abstraction when I can, or keep the abstraction. Rather than have like generic abstractions, I want abstractions that have a definite implementation in mind, right? And input does not have a definite implementation in mind. It could be mouse, it could be keyboard, it could be some weird VR stuff, right? It could be some other sensors, it could be a whole host of things. So, it could be a drum set for all you know, right? It could be like a MIDI keyboard, right? Input could be anything. So we want to be a little bit more explicit. So when we want to search for, because when we're searching the code base, we're not searching for generic things, right? We're searching for, I want to know, why a certain piece of code is doing exactly this. I want to know what handles the keyboard. I want to know what handles the mouse. You don't go, I want to know what handles the generic input device. No, you're searching for something very specific when you're searching around in the code base, so the code should be written in a very explicit manner, and try not to be too general when you're writing the code. Now that could mean that in the future we got to add like a I don't know, 3D goggles box, right? For input for 3D goggles or something, right? We could have to add something else later for another explicit implementation. So maybe that's, maybe you think that's bad and you don't want to do that. You'd rather just have things be really generic in the first place, so it's just easier to edit. But no, I'm going to go with it that way, the way I'm thinking of, and yeah, so we got the agenda over here. So I'm going to take this agenda and I'm going to put the agenda over here. And then I'm going to take this and put that over there. Was that wide? I kind of see. Let's crop that some more. So let's do some maintenance here. So over here, let's get rid of all the timestamps. You can't see the whole timestamp anyway, so it's not really useful. Okay, that's good enough there. And then on the right, well, now on the left, let's get rid of the subtree over there. It's not very useful either. And you don't really need to see like how many. I guess you might want to see the scroll position in some cases. That might be useful. But not really. And then on the bottom, we don't need to see how many items are selected. Let's just move that out of the way. And do we really need to see what's up here? Like, is that actually helpful? It does kind of help me because then I can see what project I'm in, because I can see, oh, it's the repo drive, it's the GitHub subfolder, and then it's that specific project. So I think being able to see this information up here is good for me. So we'll leave it at that right there. Close that, and let's clean up some more stuff. So what is going on over here? What is that? So oh, that's my left monitor, and what is... There's something... Oh, I see. So, I don't know what with snapping windows doesn't really work how I think it would work. Okay, so that's nice, and that's a pretty clean... that's a pretty clean looking layout. Well, no, it's not anymore because I thought we had trimmed this to where it needed to be. Let's take a look at that again. So on the left and on the bottom. Okay, so that looks good again. Close that. Okay, so that looks pretty nice. Actually, that's not right. That's not quite right still. Unless, did we... Oh, I know. Let's unlock this. Oh, so it is now... we have some extra space, so we can, like... move that over there. Our topic banner. Could potentially make that a little bit bigger now. So we're not really doing model view controller anymore, but... yeah, okay, so... I'm kind of happy with that. Okay. So that's good to me. Let's freeze that. So I'm going to close this because whatever font I'm using here, settings, style configure, whatever font I'm using right now, Andale Mono, is it's doing something really nice where that column limit is like right up. It looks like that column limit is like right where it needs to be. Oh no. Oh, you know what it is? When I'm at double digits, the new file is okay. Oh, I see. There's this like weird gray thing with breakpoints, and it pushes over my column limit indicator. Wonder if I can change that. Settings. Well, I like my breakpoint indicator, so like I don't. If I can get rid of that, settings, style configurator. No. Settings, preferences. I know it's some type of thing that, border width, that's not what I want. Well, no edge is kind of nice. We absolutely need line numbers. Bookmarks, definitely need those. Scrolling beyond last line, yes. It's just this weird thing right here. I don't know what that's about. Yeah, it still has that thing no matter what. So I don't know what that thing is. Folder margin style, none? Oh, okay. Folder margin style. Oh, because it's technically a folder. Yeah, I guess that's kind of a thing. Okay, so now if we get rid of that, no, we still have it where this is like that, and then oh, it's the damn scroll bar. So it looks good until we get that scroll bar, and that scroll bar is what's kind of like the scroll bar is what is shoving our edge a little bit too far. So I guess what we could try is we could just try a different style over here. Like, what other styles do we have? Yeah, that doesn't do anything. Okay, okay, so we're just oh well, we're just gonna always not we're always it's just kind of like wasted space. That's all that kind of bothers me, I guess. Really, If we really want to be efficient here, what we could do is we could crop this editor, and then we can use, because we know it's not gonna. Yeah, we could crop that. Yeah, let's take a look at that. So let's give it a little crop. So on the top, it already has a crop. On the left, though, no, on the right, we could crop that. So as long as I see my column limit. Oh, gotta go. I'll finish this later. Oh, well, I'll be right back. I gotta. Okay, I'm back, kind of. Just gotta get closer, closer. Okay. So let's just keep on cropping this a bit. Um, sure. Okay. Yeah, we don't have the scroll bar, but we still have line numbers, so you can still kind of see where we are. So with that, we don't really, do we really need the scroll bar being seen here? First of all, it's not really usually useful. Yeah, it's usually not useful. And even if it was, very frequently it is. So really it just adds more space that could be used for other stuff. So let's do some more cropping here. Crop it on the left. Well, if we're going to crop it like that, we're going to crop it all the way away. We might as well... So I'll do some cropping on the top. On the left. And then we don't really need to see what's on the bottom either. We don't really need to see that scroll bar. And then we kind of got a nice blend here. So that looks like a nice little setup there. So this will be my rubber ducky mode. I'm calling it that because when I'm using OBS, I'm just going to use it to kind of say my thoughts and what I'm working on and try to collect my thoughts, try to figure out where to go next. Because I'm a little bit lost right now. I'm going to stop recording, and then when I start recording again, I'm just going to be doing some refactoring.